Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, Path to Recovery. As you can see, we got our phone number up and live. I don't know how well it'll work, and we're going to give it a shot, though. We're always willing to give it a shot, Scott. It's
We're
203
give it a shot, Fred.
203 665 8584. And we're live to talk to you. If you want to call in, we can give it a shot. But how are you, Mr. Silverman?
I am well, Fred. We're in the holiday time of the year. It was interesting getting through Thanksgiving. I've gotten some very interesting calls from families, and I'm sure they will continue through the month. But overall, personally, I'm doing okay. I think I've lost a half a pound of the 20 I gained during COVID, so I'm on my way. New trend.
That's right. You're on your way. Yeah, I've been ever since I started working again, physically working.
Yeah,
I've thinned out completely, or at least turned it into more strength side, muscle side. So that's always good. I feel, and boy, do you feel better about yourself when you could not comfortably look in a mirror, but at least not turn away from the mirror. It's not as
well,
hideous.
if you went to the mirror, you wouldn't be offended like you
Right.
were.
Yeah. When you could see the change, that's when the adrenaline picks up and everything. So,
and this is probably the worst time of the year to talk about weight management, going into the holidays, the parties, the cookies, the pies, the overeating, of course the weather shifted too. So we're indoors more. You and I were talking about the cold weather earlier today. Do you want to share that great story about you were asking me about heat, and I said we have gas, and you have oil. What have you experienced?
Well,
recently.
You mean with my oil guy,
Your oil guy,
my favorite oil guy? So I call the oil guy, and he's a nice guy and everything. He's a new owner. He just bought this company from a guy that I've been using for 10 years. But he reached out to me, and I said, I'll continue to use you as long as you're reliable. I don't even judge on price. If you're, I judge my oil guy on reliability. When I call him, does he show up the next day? That's what I'm looking for. Now, price matters in today's, different world and stuff that we're living in. But, there's a lot of guys out there that don't show up. So he shows up, and I was in my office here, so I didn't hear him come, and the dog didn't bark or anything. And then I hear a beep beep, like the backing up signal of a truck. So like I realize I'm waiting for oil. I get up and I see him leaving. The only problem is he never disconnected the hose from my filler pipe on the side of the house. So I'm watching him drive down my driveway as the hose just keeps unreeling and unreeling and unreeling. Now I'm assuming he's got to figure this out, right? He must know. Somehow you got to hear it or see it, look in your rearview mirror. I don't know. But he went 250 feet, which is the whole length of the hose, which then wrapped around my house against my foundation and knocked bricks out of my foundation, wrapped around my staircase, and continued as he went further. It got tighter and tighter and just kept jumping up the steps, ripped my whole railing system out. I had my sidewalk's like 10 feet long, and it has a railing system all the way up it and then up the stairs. So it grabbed it and just ripped it out, just as it got tighter and tighter. And then finally his truck just went, and it just stopped. The whole hose actually jerked his whole truck back, and he ran out and was embarrassed and everything. But, he seems like a good guy. He seems like he's going to pay for everything that's going to be done. We'll find out when we submit the bill. And that's my story. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, there you go. A holiday story like you've never heard.
Yeah, it's been a tough. I mean, we haven't been on in a few weeks. I was on alone last week for about 10 minutes, but also my theft of my car. Remember that they stole my catalytic converter from my car while I was at work. And I work overnights, for people out there that don't know. So while I'm inside working, somebody's outside stealing parts off my car. And just for a warning for anyone, companies are not responsible for their parking lots by law.
Right. Big signs everywhere.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. I just got an engine light come on in my car, and it was an emissions control. It's interesting. The OnStar system sent me an email telling me that I had an emissions, I don't know, call them alarm or alert come up. And I just immediately assumed someone stole my catalytic converter. But generally, when someone takes your catalytic converter, it's like your muffler systems. You sound like you're in a drag racer. So anyway, it turns out that this, the last couple of months, I've when I start my car, I smell a little bit of exhaust in the morning. And I thought, well, that's just weird. Maybe it's just the way I'm parked. But so hopefully this will fix it. But luckily, this never happens. Every piece of work they did and labor was covered under the warranty. I got the extended warranty. I bought a used car. So that was nice. That never happens, where you get lucky like that. Because usually you have a big deductible and then you've got to go through all the rigmarole. Then you have to negotiate. And, these guys put new valve, not valve covers, but manifolds and seals. And I'm sure it would have been like $1,500.
Yeah. My problem with it is my car's a little older. It's a 2007. Still runs great, or did until this. I don't live in a neighborhood where they want to hear a car that sounds like a Harley Davidson. And I come home at 5:30, 6 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to fix this. It took me, I'm on my back fixing it. I don't have a lift, who does? Luckily, I have a garage. But it's not easy to fix an exhaust that's been cut away. It's not like they cut it where it's convenient for me to work on. They weren't thinking, oh, let me save this guy some meat so he could grab this. They just ripped it and cut it. But I got my insurance will cover it, but it's $900 deductible and it's $1,900 to repair this. I opted to not even repair it because they're just going to steal it again. I still work there. So if I put a new one on, they're just going to take the next one. And so I straight piped it. I took a straight pipe.
You're a perfect target now because they know that next time they know exactly what to do and how to do it on your car.
I'll tell you what, I watched a video of them doing it. They did it in 4 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah.
From the time they pulled up.
Handheld portable grinder.
Yep. Probably stolen from my work. Who knows? It's all a game. It's all a game.
You're reading the same stuff I think I am, watching these groups that go in 15, 20 people into a large, big box store and they just fill up carts and wheel out the front door. And there's nothing people can do to stop them.
Yeah, I actually am worried about that because without saying where I work in a large worldwide box store and I am an overnight supervisor that is virtually alone in the building in the sense of maybe there's 2 to 5 of us at any time in the building. So if they decided to do this after hours and just come in through the front door, 50 people, I don't know what I would do. I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm going to the top. I'm the one with the keys. So
well, what's fascinating, and in big cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco and Oakland, it's happened here in San Diego. They're going during the day. They want the daylight. They want the ease of getting in and out. They want to be able to see where they're going. And they know that they're not going to get stopped, especially in California, because if you don't have a certain amount, even if you do, of merchandise, they're not going to put you in jail. They're just going to give you, an arrest, to appear, notice to appear, an NTA. So that's why they're doing it. And I mean, I'm talking San Francisco. We're talking Union Square, downtown San Francisco, metropolitan cities, because no one's going to stop you. The cops really can't get to you quick enough. And if there's a bunch of you, you just scatter throughout the streets and, they're not going to chase you down for it. It's too,
right. And my company does have rules in place. We are not allowed to get involved in a theft.
Right.
So I have actually held the door for people walking out of the store with thousands of dollars worth of tools and stuff like that. And there's nothing I could do. I've watched a guy load it in the car. I've had conversations with people stealing as they're loading their car.
Right.
They're not afraid. they say, take a picture of my license plate all you want. It ain't real, and then
it's not my car. I got it
right.
from somebody else.
We call the police, but the police, like you said, in a large city like New Haven, cannot get to that side of town for what they consider a petty
it's a
crime.
very low priority crime, to be honest with you. But what's happening is the more it gets publicized, the more people are doing it, and it's become a game now. When 25 people come into a store to do something like that, obviously it's premeditated, planned out. But what's the worst that can happen? Somebody trips on the way out and they hurt themselves, but hopefully their buddies will pick them up.
Yeah, and they're just they come back. We see the same people come back, and there's nothing that's going to get done because these large corporations with these stores actually make money off theft, because they could report. I mean, I don't know if they do this. I'm not on the inside, but I'm saying, say 25 things are stolen. What's stopping them from saying 50? What's stopping them from saying 100 items were stolen? There's nothing. There's no proof or anything in the
Then you got loss of sales, retail product price, and like you said, so they can put a big claim in because they know they have their deductible, but over time that's going to probably end up creating a whole mess for a lot of different people, a lot of different ways.
Well, what it has to stop is, this is a common problem in an article I read with the Walmarts, the Home Depots of the world, the Lowe's of the world, and all those bigger box stores, Target and stuff. Their products are being stolen and then resold on Amazon in third-party sales. So a lot of it comes down to stopping Amazon from reselling items that they're clearly stolen, clearly. And, you can't GPS all this stuff. Then the cost goes up for me and you who spend the money. It's very similar to what we talk about a lot, which is drug addiction, where you fight one thing and you lose the battle somewhere else. You got to give something to take something, and people, usually the good, end up getting screwed from it. But we did
at the end of the day, the consumer ends up, I grew up in the retail business, and we used to talk about shoplifters, and the loss prevention statistics show that 75% of theft in most retail concerns comes from people that are working there, not from people from the outside. Now it's a little different. It's flip-flopped a little bit, but that was always the way it was. So we were unfortunately trying to set up as many deterrents as possible for people working on the inside by creating incentives and compensation packages so people wouldn't feel like they needed to. But at the end of the day, someone always feels like, well, this is your money. This isn't my money. So what's the difference?
Kind of like Scott. Well, we have Chris here, who's back. Hi, Chris. Chris Sherm, past guest, friend of our show. I'm going to play a video. I want to play a video. It's just a 7-minute video. And I thought it was a very good one to help with, me and you had mentioned we wanted to talk about the signs and symptoms of drug and alcohol addiction pertaining to the holidays. This doesn't pertain necessarily to the holidays, but me and you could afterwards talk about it. But Chris could be the one to tell us if it's actually playing and he could hear it. So let me set that up real quick, and we'll see if it works.
Alrighty.
I'm Denise Williams. I am the Manager of Therapeutic Services at Genesis Behavioral Health, and I have worked in the field of behavioral health and addiction for over 35 years. Addiction does not affect just one group of people. It affects all ages, all economic backgrounds, all classes. And the drugs of choice also vary too among those different ages and classes and socioeconomic backgrounds. We all know someone that has a drug or alcohol problem, and it may be a family member, it may be a friend, a coworker, a child, and it's very challenging to see someone struggling with addiction, and many times we just don't know what to do. We don't know how to help, and we can feel very powerless watching that person change their life, change their lifestyle, and start to deteriorate from being the person they could be if they weren't drinking and drugging. If you suspect a loved one is struggling with addiction, the first thing I would suggest that you do is to gain information yourself. learn what addiction is, learn the signs and symptoms, find out what treatment facilities are available. And also, it gives you information so that you're not shaming the alcoholic or addict, but you are giving them information that they can use to support their decision to go into recovery. And one of the best ways to do that is to allow the addict to see their behavior through your eyes. So let them know what signs and symptoms that you are seeing. The alcoholic or addict typically doesn't think anybody knows they have a problem. So by you sharing what you're seeing, you're breaking through that denial and letting them see their behavior, their addiction through your eyes. And then when they're ready for help, they know that you're supportive of them. They know that you know that there's a problem and that you know where they can go to get help. Let's see, the signs and symptoms of addiction usually begin with mood swings. You would see the person experiencing mood swings. And all of the addictive drugs cause mood swings. And so when a person is craving the drink or drug, you'll see one mood. And then when they're coming down off the drug, you may see another change in mood. When they're actively using, you're going to see them being under the influence, and that's going to affect the way they behave. So mood swings are probably one of the first indicators, and also mood swings that don't match what's going on around the person's life. Some other signs can be secrecy, things that they used to be very open about. Now they're not telling you where they're going or what they're doing, or there's money coming up missing, or they're not telling you who they're hanging out with. So there's just some things that are secret that didn't used to be secret with this person, and they're not being open and honest about what's happening. Some other signs and symptoms might be physical health. They may start to look different. They're just not taking care of themselves. They're not taking care of their personal hygiene. They're not taking care of their teeth and their medical care. Typically, when people are struggling with addiction, they don't take care of themselves because the focus is on the drink or the drug. So those are some of the real common symptoms that people see. And many times people see these symptoms, but they don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe that they're dealing with addiction. So they come up with a lot of other ideas about or explanations for why the person is doing what they're doing. And many times it gets blamed on stress. It's like, oh, they're stressed with their job, or it's a bad relationship, or this relationship is breaking up and that's why they're acting that way. And that may be a good excuse. It might be actually occurring. Sometimes it's hard to know which came first. Was it the addiction and then the stressful events, or the stressful events and then the addiction? People that are struggling with addiction have a lot of shame and guilt, and they don't want to believe that their drinking and drugging is causing the consequences, causing the family disruption and financial issues and relationship issues that the addiction is causing. But we forget, or sometimes just aren't aware, that addiction is a disease very comparable to diabetes or high blood pressure or cardiac disease. Both of those all of those diseases have environmental factors, they have hereditary factors, and they have lifestyle factors that impact them. And we don't think about addiction as a disease. Many times we assign it to a moral issue, or the person's bad, or there's they just need to quit, they just need to stop. And we don't do that with heart disease or diabetes. We don't say, well, you can just stop or you can just quit. Those diseases, a person has them forever. It's just a matter of managing them and learning how to manage the symptoms so that they don't cause further destruction to the person or to the family. So that guilt can prevent them from seeking treatment and getting help because they don't want anyone to be putting them down or to pointing out all of the things that they've done wrong and as a result of their addiction. And what we try to do is help the patient work through the guilt and the denial, and to really look at life as it has been with their drug and alcohol use, but also to look at what it could be without the drug and alcohol use. And so help them to work through the forgiveness, and that helps get through the denial. It helps them to realize that it is okay to have this problem, and it is okay to seek help, and that help is available. I think that recovery is possible. People do get sober and stay sober, and I see people on the street that I've had as clients, and they'll come to me and say, hey, I've been sober 5, 10, 15 years. And that's very rewarding to see that people have recovered. And there are people in recovery that you just don't know they're in recovery because they don't talk about it. But because once a person's been clean and sober, they start to blend in with life. They're working, they're raising their children, they're doing what everybody else is doing. And you don't know that they're in recovery unless they happen to share that with you. So they don't look like alcoholics or addicts once they've been clean and sober for a while. So, but recovery is possible. It does happen. And I think it's just a struggle, and it's just keep at it, keep trying. And if you keep trying, you will be successful.
So, Scott, what do you think of that?
Well, the language, the wording she uses, very similar to what I talk about. I resonate with everything she said. And I completely agree. I really want to meet her. It's nice to find a kindred spirit who speaks about it, I know, the way I do and believes it the way I do. It's interesting that towards the end, she kind of said he doesn't look like an addict or an alcoholic. But what I have found is there is no look. You can be tall, short, fat, skinny, doesn't matter, very successful, wearing $3,000 shoes or no shoes at all and have a similar issue. So I really liked it. She's great. Where's she based out of again?
It doesn't say exactly. Her name is Denise Williams, and I'll give you what she is: a LISW-S and an LICDC-CS. Do you know what that?
Licensed social worker, probably.
Manager of Therapeutic Services at Genesis Behavioral Health. So I figured, since we had mentioned talking about that, I wanted to find somebody besides us, and then we could discuss. I'm sure, and this is within a year she did this video, and I just thought it's an interesting way to get an opinion without having a true guest. So she was our guest today.
Very good. Well,
Denise
thank you for being
Williams.
with us, Denise. That was nice.
Yeah, until she sues us for being on here. No, I think she'll be fine with it. But
yeah,
it is important, I guess, to see signs. Of course, you've probably seen signs from all angles. You've seen the people that said, "Oh, I'm clean," when they're not clean. You've seen people say they're in recovery when clearly they're drunk or whatever. You've seen it from all different angles because of where you are in the world. I haven't quite seen that beyond some friends,
right.
some friends. And it is unique. I actually ran into an old friend the other day, who unfortunately went down a bad rabbit hole when he was about 17, 18, and we lost touch. Haven't seen him since I think the last time I saw him was at my wedding when I was 21. So I hadn't seen him in 31 years. Ran into him, and let's say he says he's clean. He says he's fine. That I don't know. I can't tell, but what I could see is what it did to him. Even if he is clean, what he put his body through. And sadly, I guess this is most common that you hear. None of this he wasn't abusing drugs recreationally. He had a severe back injury,
right,
where he was medicated with oxys. This is going back 31 years ago, medicated with oxys. And I remember at my wedding, him in the bathroom actually smashing the oxys into a powder form. And I just thought it was cocaine. That's what I honestly thought it was. I didn't know about his problem. I knew he had a back issue and he was going in for back surgery. But, I was married, had children already. So after the wedding, we separated and he went down a bad road. But his voice is it sounds so painful for him to talk almost at this point, probably from all the ingestion through his nose and stuff of the drugs. So, but it was nice to see him. He looks healthy. I just don't know anything about him. It's not like I rekindled the friendship. We just talked for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I hear more from families who describe the behavior of what's going on with their loved ones. And that's just sad when you listen to families say, and they ask, how long has this been going on? Well, about 14 years. It's just like, how in the world do we, understand why a family member would watch, witness, and they did everything they could. And I believe that, been in treatment multiple. I'm working with a group now I'm talking to that has a friend that's been through multiple treatment opportunities and has had chronic relapses, and is basically become homebound now and has someone deliver the alcohol or whatever else that they're digesting. So it is a sad situation, and Denise actually even said it, you don't really know, you can't really know. And a lot of people don't talk about it. And this is something I think in the last 10 years, when you mostly came up with the idea of the name for the show, there's a lot of people out there that are, come forward now. I think Ben Affleck, I read something about him, and you got Robert Downey Jr. And, just recently, Demi Lovato said, she's now no longer California sober. She's sober. And, it's kind of interesting. So clearly her, idea of what California sober was and should be, she either bumped into a wall or changed her thinking. And we posted something on my social media, and some of the feedback's really interesting how people are interpreting what she's saying now.
Right.
So it just, to me, there are those who don't believe it's a disease, and I don't fight with people anymore about that, because that's their belief system. But even what's her name, Denise said it. She said, it's like diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease. You don't wake up in the morning and go, I'd like to do everything I can to kill myself today. So this disease of denial is a big part of it. So going back to it, I hear from the family. It's pretty rare that, and a lot of times I'll hear from an individual who's, I call them actively self-medicating, because I don't know if they're an addict or not. They haven't been tested, diagnosed, but generally speaking, when they describe their behavior and their patterns, you get a pretty good sense they may have this addiction. So it's baffling, and it is one of those things that it's so opaque. You can't just take somebody in and give them a shot. There's no vaccine for this, and that's what's real troubling, because some families, and I've talked about this a lot, when you're the addict, you impact 7 people negatively every day because of your impairment or your attitude or your suffering. And that's a problem. So when you think about that, that's a major portion of our country that's impacted by somebody who suffers from the disease of addiction or a substance use disorder.
I'm assuming I'd like to give Demi Lovato the benefit of the doubt that she is sober or whatever term she's using. But there's also the option where maybe the right person finally talked to her, that even if she decides to stay her California sober, maybe there's a more of a benefit for her to just to keep that private, maybe to be a positive influence by saying, I am sober, and live her life whatever way she wants behind the scenes.
I don't think she even has to say it twice, because here's the thing, to your point, somebody because I've introduced myself as an addict and an alcoholic. And the reason I do that is I was addicted to both medication and unprescribed medication. And I also drank, and I was diagnosed with both diseases, I call them, of addiction to anything mood altering. So when I hear somebody say to me, and there's a couple of different anonymous program and there was a non-alcoholic anonymous program that people who only did drugs wanted to be part of because they didn't have an alcohol problem. And in the old days, you go to an alcohol meeting, the people in the alcohol meeting didn't want you to be there if you had a drug problem. So that's kind of the culture of, if you will, how it kind of grew out. So I still introduce myself, and I've had people at meetings come up to me and go, this is a meeting for people who suffer from addiction from drugs, or this is a meeting with people who suffer from addiction of alcohol. And I just kind of blow it off. I used to really get angry at that, but now I do that. And so I've seen people who have actually given up heroin, okay, which is a miracle. It's a very difficult drug to get off of, and they still drink. And I don't judge them. And for them, if that works, that's great. But the theory behind the science is if you suffer from this disease of addiction and you take in something that's mood altering, ultimately you will get back to what's defined as your drug of choice. That's why the California sober thing was so controversial, because I believe the statement was, I've given up, I think, opioids, and I'm only drinking now. And then it went to, I'm only smoking marijuana. But the problem with marijuana is it's so strong today. If you're predisposed to addiction, it's going to trigger other things in your body, mind, and soul. So that's the problem with the wording and the framing. But,
yeah,
people have to make their own decisions. But as long as they're making solid, informed decisions, I think that's smart. And, you and I've talked about her a lot, about the platform she has. So she's a major influencer. So anything that she can do that might help somebody understand that what they're doing may not be helping them down the road, it could save a life.
There's actually a lot. To change subjects a little, this is more about self-doubt, which probably plays a role in a lot of depressions, mental health issues, and drug addiction. I mean, I'm sure once you're addicted to drugs, you have self-doubt that you could even get better. Even though you see other people do it, you say, yeah, 1 in 10, that's not me though,
Right.
and they have self-doubt. So they just keep going down the rabbit hole. But last night, Jonah Hill was on one of the Jimmy shows, Jimmy Fallon. He was on Jimmy Fallon, and he was talking about, first of all, he has a new documentary coming out on, I believe, Hulu, where it's him and his therapist. And his point in this documentary is to show you what therapy is. And it's a very positive, but he says it's a very unique show because it's not every day you get the actual therapist with the patient on film, and to get them both to agree to these HIPAA violations and, the HIPAA laws and all that. But he really was open because he's very big on what that did for him.
Yeah.
But his theory about self-doubt was, I don't know if you're aware that he is playing Jerry Garcia in Martin Scorsese is doing, I believe, Martin Scorsese is doing the film, a Jerry Garcia biopic, and Jonah Hill is playing Jerry. He says this is where self-doubt almost killed this project, because he was just sitting home with the COVID rules and stuff, didn't know what to do. So he's on YouTube and he's saying, he runs across he's a big Grateful Dead fan. He runs across the video and he says, why hasn't a movie ever been made about this? This guy has a story. There's a story to Jerry Garcia, the movements and stuff that he created beyond the music. And he goes, why hasn't this story? And he goes down an hour and a half of writing down notes, and he creates this thing, and he's got fame and fortune and connections. But he says, in his mind, he's saying, don't tell anybody about this. This is the dumbest thing you've ever thought of. This is the stupidest thing you've ever come up with. You can't do it. He says, through that hour and a half, he went through such a high of creating something and managed to talk himself down with self-doubt that he could be the actor, that he could get this done. And he said self-doubt almost destroyed this. Instead, he decided to show it to his partners. His partners loved it. One of them said, I know who would be very interested in this. He gets on the phone with Martin Scorsese, who Jonah Hill is already connected with through The Wolf of Wall Street. And Scorsese says, I absolutely love it. And now it's in filming. And he says, that's what self-doubt can do. And that's a huge difference in his life and who he is. So I think it's important. And the reason I brought it up was talking about celebrities using their celebrity to talk, because people listen when they talk versus when me and you talk.
Yep.
I'm sure they listen, but Chris listens, at least. We get a lot of listens afterwards. We don't get as many live as we would like. So if people out there that are watching this in the future or watching it, right now we're on live every Tuesday at about 7 p.m., usually 7 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific. And usually we're talking about something. We go, it's unscripted, completely unscripted. So we have ideas we want to talk about. We don't always get them out there. But if they could start sharing us sharing the video, sharing our name, sharing the show, whatever way they could do that cost them nothing and maybe a few seconds of their time just to hit the share button, we'd appreciate it, because we really want to grow in video format and audio. We are available on Apple and on Spotify, among others. I can't remember them all, but we do very well in that form, in audio form, but we don't do as well in video form. And maybe it's because we're not attractive enough. I mean, you're attractive. We should start showing pictures of us when we were young and children and see.
Or we get a photo up of what we actually feel like that week. I mean, you know, one of the things I did when I was in early recovery was working in an adult children of alcoholics workshop, and you had to go out and you had to search a stuffed animal that was your inner child, and Woody Woodpecker was mine. Give you an idea. What a surprise. But, you know, and one of the things, you know, Fred, that we try to do in I believe our mission statement is, even though we don't have a formal one, is we're about helping save lives. That's our agenda here. That's our mission, is to try to help save lives and reducing the stigma. I don't think there's anybody who would disagree. That's not a great idea, because the stigma is what's preventing so many different things, you know. And I'm going to leave us with this thought that I just got today from a colleague. The Surgeon General just came out with a public statement in a very unusual arena. I'm sure it's online, talking about the state of mental health of teenagers right now because of what's gone on and what's been happening. So at the end of the day, this kind of ramification, you know, and I just was at a different meeting today with our DA and a task force talking about how kids technically are just coming back to school. So a kindergartner basically missed first and second grade. And that's a big period of time when relationships and bonding and acting out and reaching out and teachers catching different behaviors to try to help not only support, but also help correct. So that gap is going to, you know, in my opinion, from a trajectory perspective, it's going to pop its head in a lot of different ways. We don't know which way it's going to be yet. Nobody knows. But, you know, when you read the story that the Surgeon General talked about, the good news is at least they're talking about it early. So, but, you know, when kids get back to school, you know, teachers are stressed, they're overwhelmed, resources are low, and it's a very interesting time. So I think what we're doing about talking about whatever needs to be talked about in a way that's positive and that there is hope and help. And I think, you know, the video we saw, she talked about it as well. Recovery happens. It's possible. You can get better. People do all the time. I'm a walking, talking example. So that's kind of it for me, Fred. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday. I don't know what we're going to be doing next week.
Well, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Why was, you know, as a Jewish person, why does Hanukkah change dates? I don't understand that from a non-Jewish standpoint. Well, what is the theory behind
the leaders got together and said, you know, we only represent about 2% of the population. What can we do annually to piss everybody else off? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it's purposeful because the calendars are made out 100 years in advance. I just think it's serendipitous and it's coincidental, but it's already over with, Fred. So try not to carry a resentment. You got plenty of time to prepare for your holiday. And some people may not celebrate a holiday. And some people are so messed up right now, they may not even know it's December.
Is it true that you collect dreidels?
My wife does.
And menorahs?
Correct.
So anybody that has a unique dreidel out there can send it to Scott.
Michelle, send it to my wife. She loves them. She's a big collector. Just got one the other day.
Well, good. And
then she has 3 of them. So when we light the candles, so that the last night when there's 8 candles, it's like 24 candles.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it, but she's always done it. She loves doing it. And she says, why do you question? I said, I don't question. I'm just curious. We're burning a lot of candles. It's not good for the carbon footprint. Then she got upset with me.
So do you want to do what you always do and give your phone number?
I do. Area code 619-993-2738. 619-993-2738. Why do I give out my phone number? That's a question I get asked all the time. So people will call me or text me and find out what it is we can do together to help someone you love. I had a woman call me the other day, a mom. She was in Detroit, Michigan. And she says, I said, she was complaining about her son, not complaining, but upset about it. I said, where is he now? And she says, he's right here. He gets on the phone. And I said, why are you pissing your mom off? He starts laughing. He goes, I don't mean to. And she's right and I'm wrong. And I need help. I said, what would you like to do? So we talked for about 30 minutes, came up with a couple ideas, and got mom back on the phone. I said, look, he's got 3 days to get into action. He's supposed to call me. So basically, as he's hanging up the phone, I could hear him. He just told me to call him. I'm all set, Mom. Don't worry. So mom at least can relax for a couple of days. We'll see what happens. See if he calls.
Well, that'll be good for her holiday, at least, possibly, and stuff. And
because she's more stressed than he is.
Yeah. I was going to tell another story, but we'll save this for the next time because
you want to close us up with your heartfelt.
Yeah, I'll close it off. So thank you everybody for listening to Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. We're available on Apple and Spotify. We're available here every Tuesday with Scott H. Silverman and myself, Fredd Carroll. And if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. I believe we'll be back next Tuesday, and then we'll take the holiday off probably, but just come back every Tuesday. We'll have something up and something going. So we are out, and we will see you again very soon.